Good evening, everybody. This is the third day of our intense course on media literacy for students. As I have been telling you for the last 2 days, that we have designed this course to impart uh, that kind of knowledge and awareness among the school students, particularly, which is necessary to them to understand the intricacies, the implications involved in misinformation and disinformation, because that's a menace which is affecting us all, and it has started affecting more during this corona period. And that is how two institutions, Adamas University, Kolkata, and Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, they joined hands to launch this kind of program. Because we were of the opinion that if we are able to impress upon the young minds that what are the problems lying and how can we address this problem, then to some extent a difference will be made in the society. Because we all use digital media in a big way and everybody is on the social media. In such a time, we all are using Facebook, Instagram, and then WhatsApp, and then I mean on all these platforms, there are risks involved because on particularly WhatsApp, we are always busy in forwarding the messages without looking into the veracity of the messages, and that cause a lot of damage to the society. So we need to create awareness. That's the only thing that we all can do. A law can take its own course. There are legal measures which can be taken against anybody who is involved in any spread of the wrong messages or such messages which are harmful. But then one most effective way is providing information to the people and creating awareness among the people. So that's our main focus when we have launched this program on media literacy for students. And the resource persons who are involved in taking different sessions, they are the faculty members of Adamas University and Delhi Metropolitan Education. We have also involved the industry people who can provide the benefit of their experience to you. And we have also the sessions on fact checking, so that any information which is coming to us, we can make out whether it's a genuine information or not, and whether it is further to be disseminated or not. So we have to be equipped with all these kind of tools. Today is the third day, and today we have Mrs. Krishna Pandey with us, and who will be speaking on the making sense of media, and she will be covering the media ownership, media policies, and the legal and the ethical implications, ethical issues with regard to media content. And as I told you, that's a joint venture, and it's the first of its kind in the country, wherein two education institutions have joined hands to do this. And the people who are behind this, I'm there, Amrish Saxena, who is a dean in DME Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education, and it all has been initiated when the idea was mooted to take up this kind of course by Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, who is a pro-vice chancellor of Adamas University and who is dean of the School of Communication, Media and Fashion. And then there is another team of two very important persons who are coordinating the whole thing. These are Dr. Asha Singh, who is Associate Professor in the School of Media, Communication and Fashion in Adamas University, and then Ms. Yashasrika Yadav, who is the Assistant Professor in DME Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education. So I'm thankful to all the people who are with me and who are making this whole course possible. And there are students from 11th and 12th standards who have joined this session and who are joining in other sessions. And they mainly belong to two schools, Mayur School and Delhi World Public School. Noida Extension, and few students have joined from other institutions as well. So I welcome them all, and I believe that whatever we are trying to do, that will be benefiting the students. That's our target audience, and we would always like to have questions from them. And we have been telling this to young people, then ask questions. Might be that this is something which is completely new to them, so they might be taking time. Since the time the things sink in and they start thinking on the issues that we are talking about, and then obviously we expect that they are coming up with the questions. But still, again, I'm making a request to all the participants to ask questions, and the way they can ask questions, they can put up their questions in the chat box, and questions can be asked pertaining to whatever is being said or presented by the resource person in today's session. But then, even if there is not exactly related to that session, even then you can ask your questions pertaining to whatever was told to you in the last two sessions, or otherwise. So, I mean, taking the holistic view of whatever information we are trying to impart. So related to that also, any kind of question is welcome, because in communication, unless there is a two-way flow of communication, and unless there is an exchange happening, then and, we believe, because we all are working in communication and media studies, so we all believe that the communication process is not complete unless this is happening. So I once again ask you all to ask questions, and then without wasting any time, I request Mrs. Krishna Pandey to please take over the session and start making her presentation.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to interact with students. Uh, Hello, everybody. I am expecting that by now most of you have some idea of what exactly is media and how media functions. So today I'm going to take you to a very different kind of journey, a journey where you will learn about actually who owns media. I believe this question might have cropped up to your mind that actually who owns media? Who are the people who are controlling the media today? See, before I start my PPT, let me give you a brief of what exactly am I supposed to talk to you today. As Sir has already said, the topic is making sense of media, where I'll be taking the ownership pattern of media and also about some ethical and legal issues related to the content as well as the ownership pattern of media. See, the issue of ownership of media has been debatable in the country since time. I mean, it has been as old as a post-independent India. And this issue has been debated from not just some intellectual platforms, media itself has been debating. Plus, if you go into deeper, you will realize it has also been debated on platforms like TRAI, which is the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, as well as 2017 saw for the first time the August House, that is the Rajya Sabha, deliberating and debating on the issue of media ownership. So, such is the important issue. Also, why do we need to understand what exactly is media ownership and how does it happen? So, how does some people come and control the media? Uh, because we must understand the ownership pattern has got a lot of things to do with the freedom of expression, with what exactly the media says to you, tells to you. You all know media creates the opinion, media creates the perception, because what is seen in the media is what you debate, you discuss with your friends, with your family members, at home, in college, in schools, everywhere. So the ownership pattern becomes very important for you to understand, because the concentration of media, the consolidation of media has come into the hands of very few powerful people. The notion that media is free is a misnomer nowadays, because there are few powerful, big houses, big people, individuals with money who are controlling the media today. So let's see who are these people who are controlling the media. I would like to share my PPT with you. I hope the PPT is visible.
Yes, it's
Four,
visible.
pardon?
It's
Yeah,
visible.
please go ahead.
Four important companies, I mean, four most powerful conglomerates are owning the majority of media in the world. You would be surprised to know, according to Forbes list, which has come out in 2020, the largest media conglomerates in terms of revenue are Comcast, the Walt Disney Company, AT&T, and Viacom CBS. Won't you like to know which are the which are the media platforms that these companies are owning? Look at Comcast, the whole media landscape that they're owning. NBC is their main studio, Fox, 20th Century Fox, then Star, then Hulu, then Sky. All these platforms, they are owning it. Then see Disney, your all favorite channels, your all favorite series, be it Lion King, be it Aladdin, be it what you call the Marvel Cinematic Universe, pictures like the films like Thor, the Avengers, the Disney Princess, Cinderella, Frozen, Aladdin, the Chronicles of Narnia franchise, the Pirates of Caribbean franchise, the Incredibles, the Indiana Jones franchise. All these are owned by which company? It's the Walt Disney, which has been owning all this. You can also see the number of platforms, the channels that they're owning. ABC, they have 80% stake in ESPN. They're also owning Marvel, Lucasfilm, History Channel, Lifetime, in which they have the Hearst Corporation, in which they have 50% of equity, the Pixar, the Hollywood Records. So all those big channels which you hear on a day-to-day basis are owned by none other than Walt Disney itself. Then comes AT&T. From broadband to service provider, AT&T has become a content creator. One of the finest, one of the biggest takeover of AT&T has been the DreamWorks production, where you have these Kung Fu Panda series, your Shrek series, Shrek 1, Shrek 2, Shrek 3. Again, HBO, the Hollywood box office, is owned by AT&T, the CNN, the news channels, the Turner, DC Entertainment. You won't believe, you just have to think about the channels and you would come to know that who are these companies, who conglomerates, the big houses who are owning these companies. The Warner Bros., the Dark Knight, Batman trilogy, the Harry Potter, the Inception, all these, the Lord of the Rings series, all these are owned by none other than AT&T. Then the third most powerful company is the Viacom CBS. Now Viacom CBS owns Paramount, the Paramount Pictures, the Nickelodeon movies, the Viacom 18 motion pictures, the Miramax, the MTV Classic, the Comedy Central. Besides these four, we have another four who are just they very soon they would be becoming the major players. One is Alphabet. Alphabet, you all know, Alphabet is the parent company of Google. Google is the most essential, most important, most relevant as far as the ownership pattern is concerned, because off late it has become very this thing it has acquired top position from the on the basis of advertising revenue, simply because of its search engine function, and also because of the popularity of YouTube. Facebook, again, it has become an important platform, you all know, and the revenue of advertisement of Facebook and also the revenue or profit has risen tremendously in the past few years after Facebook bought Instagram in 2012 and then WhatsApp in 2014. How can we forget Netflix? From a simple video streaming platform in 2010, Netflix has grown into a content creation program, content creation platform. Again, Amazon. Very soon, Amazon also will start catching up with these because they have also started streaming. Amazon Prime, it's their foray into media. So some of these are the major players who are controlling the majority of media, not just worldwide. They're also having major stake in India. Let's see how they are entering into the Indian market. Your very own Star India Private Limited. Now it's a wholly owned subsidiary of Walt Disney. Walt Disney itself in India has a network of 60 channels. And then Sony Entertainment Television, you all know Sony Pictures of Japan is owning Sony Entertainment, and TV owned by Z Entertainment Network, and Colors TV is owned by Viacom 18. Now, Viacom 18 is a joint venture between Network 18 and this is Viacom and Network coming together. So this Network 18 is the channel of Reliance. So you see the companies that are coming in. Then Sony, it's a Japanese giant. I've already told you. Then Foxstar. Foxstar is again a joint venture of 20th Century Fox and Star, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch. UTV Motion Pictures. Now this is again jointly owned by Walt Disney and UTV Communications. So and then lastly we have Warner Bros and Walt Disney. They have all made their foray in Indian Bollywood, and you must have seen their cinemas also. Now, before we get into the ownership patterns, let's understand what exactly is the Indian media today. Based on a report of Media Ownership Monitor that came out in 2019, India has 118,000 registered publications, out of which 38,933 are weekly newspapers, monthly magazines. Again, 36,564 are monthly magazines, and 17,160 are daily newspapers, which comprise of not just Hindi, English, but regional language as well. Again, India also has 880 plus satellite channels, 550 plus radio stations, combining both FM, community radio stations, plus 380 news channels, and there is only one news radio station, that is All India Radio. So you see the kind of market that India is providing to these companies. Now, who are the people who are exactly owning media in India? See, media organizations in the country are today owned by individuals, trusts, and corporates. Very few people are dominating this market, solely because of the lack of regulations, laws in the ownership pattern. I'll come to you and explain what exactly these ownership patterns are. But before that, I just want to give you a fair understanding of what exactly the media landscape in India is. So there are two kinds of control, that is vertical and horizontal control. Vertical control is that if you have, suppose you have a channel, then it's various other platforms, similar like suppose you are having a newspaper, then you also have a television channel, you also have a radio channel, and then you're also into OTT platforms. Those are all vertical controls. Horizontal control is the area, geographical area that you are controlling. And then you have political parties investing into various media channels, and not only that, you have people with political affiliations getting into media. Also, many of these corporates who have their interest in media are also owning or are the stakeholders in various prominent media channels. The growing corporatization of Indian media is manifest in the manner in which large industrial conglomerates are acquiring direct and indirect interest in media groups. That is why if you closely watch Indian media today, you would realize that many corporates news covered by media is never critical. They are very neutral, very objective when they are covering many of the corporates, many of the organizations, many of the companies. So the only thing is that since media is largely dependent, or these corporates have vested interest in these media channels, you will see that they are never critical of the functioning of these corporates. Now, these are some of the channels, these are some of the prominent channels about which I believe you must be aware of. So I thought I'll give you a little glimpse of some Indian channels also. So ABP News, it's Anand Bazar Patrika. Its main media platform is Anand Bazar News Network. It is called ANN, and this is owned by Avik Sarkar. It's a Sarkar family originally from Kolkata. Then there is another one which is popular and famous. It's the Amar Ujala. It is owned by Maheshwari family. And then you have Dainik Bhaskar. It's owned by DB Corporations, and the family is Agarwal family. The son Sudhir Agarwal is the main owner. Indian Express Group, which was founded by Ramnath Goenka, and now this group is owned by his son Vivek Goenka and grandson Anant Goenka. Hindustan Times Media Limited. This is a group which is now has a majority stake by Shobna Bhartiya. Then you have India TV. India TV is owned by Independent News Service, and this is the owner is none other than Mr. Rajat Sharma and his wife, Miss Ritu Dhawan. India Today Group is owned by Living Media. Living Media is owned by Mr. Arun Puri, and some amount of shares are also with the Aditya Birla Group of Mr. Kumar Mangalam is the one who is partnering into Living Media. Then the Jagran Group is again owned by Jagran Media Network Limited. NDTV, it's New Delhi Television, which is it was the first independent private news network which came to challenge the monopoly of Doordarshan, and this was started by Mr. Pranav Roy and his wife, Ms. Radhika Roy. Then Network 18. Network 18 is also a broadcast limited channel company which is jointly owned by Viacom 18 and Reliance Group. It's a part of Reliance Group. Finally, the Prasar Bharati, which is an autonomous body which was created by the Vishwanath Pratap Singh government in 1997. This is an autonomous body which runs Doordarshan and All India Radio, though autonomous in nature, but it solely is under the control of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. So how different is the Indian market from the rest of the world? Most prominent difference is that we are still growing against the international market where we say that print media is saturated and most of the print media has digitized and they have resorted to digital means. We are still growing as far as the print is concerned, and also despite entering into digital arena, digital foray, the print is growing, the readership is growing day by day. So we are a market which is still growing. At the same time, we also have various corporates, various business interests in our media, for whom media is not a sole business. They are already into different kinds of businesses, and whereby they have also entered into media business. That also makes us little different from the international market. For example, Dainik Bhaskar Group, which was started in 1958, earlier it started with only one Hindi newspaper edition that was coming out from Bhopal, but now they have TV, they have radio stations, they are also into printing, textiles, oil, real estate, hotels, power generation industry. So they are foraying into many of the businesses, and media is just one business for them. So for one, India is a developing country, and we are growing, as I said before. It is also, but at the same time, we are highly fragmented market. This is because of the socio-economic diversity, the various kinds of regional languages, and the sheer size of the country that makes us a very dynamic, plural, and fragmented media market. The mass media in India is also possibly dominated by very few families, very few groups or conglomerates who exercise considerable influence on what is read, heard, and watched by everybody. Now let's come to understand what exactly are the ownership patterns. Media ownership patterns are based on three important parameters. First is operation, size, and funding. When we talk about the operations, there are four kinds of operations through which the ownership pattern happens. It's the chain ownership, cross-media ownership, conglomerate, and vertical integration. Now, what exactly is chain ownership? Chain ownership is something like the same media company is owning a chain of newspapers. At the same time, they are also owning, suppose, for example, a media company is into print. Now that means they are not just owning newspaper, they are also owning magazines, everything that is related to print, they are the owners of those. So that's the chain of news. For example, a TV media company is into broadcasting. That means they are owning not just a broadcast channel, they're also owning an entertainment channel, they're also into a news channel. So that is a chain ownership. And this is most of the time applicable to newspaper, and the chain ownership is the phenomena which has started post-independent, or in fact, if we say it even pre-independence, this chain ownership process was there. For example, Times of India, the Times Group owns not just Times of India, they also own the Economic Times, the Mirror, the Maharashtra Times, the Navbharat Times, Ek Samay, Nav Gujarat, then Vijay Karnataka, Femina, and Filmfare. So all are there, all of these are into print. So you can see the chain ownership existing model as far as the Times of India is concerned. Cross media ownership. When the same company owns several other medias along with newspaper, magazines, they're also into radio, they're also into television, they're also publishers, they are also have vertical integration, they are also not, they not just create content, they are also service providers. So then it becomes a cross media ownership. That means the ownership is happening across various verticals. It is not just a similar vertical, it is happening across various verticals. A group may be owning a newspaper, it may also be owning side by side a television channel, a news channel, or an entertainment channel, also an OTT platform, or a publishing house, or a radio channel. So all these where you have the diverse ownership, it becomes cross media ownership. Again, I have given you the example of Times Group. How? See, the Times Group owns Movies Now, MNX, MN Plus, Comedy Now, Zoom. They're all Hollywood movie channels. Then news channel, Times Now World, Mirror Now, ET Now. Then into Radio Mirchi, and then Times Internet. Now, what is conglomerate ownership? A conglomerate ownership means the ownership of several businesses, of which media is one business. That means a company or an organization is already into a lot of businesses, and it tries to enter into a media business for the sake of certain interest, whereby it tries to create, improve its stature in society, or it tries to influence the policymakers. So it has its own interest of entering into media. So foray into media gives them not just prestige but also influencing power over policy and decision makers. Finest example of conglomerate ownership is Reliance Industries. Reliance not just owns CNBC, TV18, Colors is also owned by Reliance, Network 18 is also owned by Reliance, History Channel, then Nickelodeon, then Fox, then you have publishing houses by Reliance. Then you in the digital venture they own Money Control, Book My Show, Home Shopping. Then again OTT platform or digital platforms they own Boot, Cricket Next. So all these are various diverse areas in which Reliance has spread its wings. So what is vertical integration? Now, vertical integration refers to a situation when a company controls the entire or most of the value chain related to the particular business. For example, if a company is into newspaper, if the company is bringing out a newspaper, so that means a fully vertical integration will have, company will be having its own printing press, its own editorial staff, its own distribution network. In the case of television, the company would be owning production, the telecast, the distribution of its channel. So it means that whatever are the value chain that is in setting up of the business or in running of the business, the requirement of the areas, are all owned by that company. That becomes a vertical integration. Examples can be a coffee grower owned by Nescafe, and transport, how to transport the raw material, how can the raw material then be processed and sent to the market. So all these, the value chain is what the vertical integration is all about. Another important aspect of media ownership is the backdoor entry of corporates in media. Now, due to various reasons, large corporate houses seem to have acquired large influence over established media houses because of the superior money power they have gained backdoor entry into the world of media. A number of corporate sector entities now dominant or part owner of established media houses. It is simply fear that corporates use media to bias and also to influence views, policy making in a manner so as to promote their own interests while generating business revenues for themselves. Corporate influence in media is now discernible in many ways and also in the news flowing out of newsroom. You can see that many times you would realize, I don't know whether you people remember it or not, when Arvind Kejriwal was contesting the Delhi Assembly elections, he was constantly talking about the Reliance, and he was also talking about the Reliance and Kaveri Basin issue and the oil pricing tempering by the Reliance. So, and that led to a lot of issues, and as a result, Reliance, which was into an agreement with Network 18 that time, which was owned by Rahul Bahel, suddenly decided to take over this channel and buy it by 2012. So freedom of press is also largely dependent on the nature of ownership. With corporates at the helm, the freedom to express gets confined to vested interest of the corporates. It is further pointed out that free collection and dissemination of facts is not possible in the case of newspapers, which depend to a large extent on revenue from advertisements, as the advertising interest cannot but influence the presentation of news and comments. Advertisements are a major source of revenue, both not just for print but also for the broadcast media. So the companies which are entering into advertisements for print as well as for the broadcast media, or for that matter radio, it is not possible for a media channel to either express negative views against those companies under which they are already under obligation. So it is logical that media entities may hesitate to write or broadcast anything against their benefactors. The trend of large corporate acquiring stakes or investing in well-known media companies appears to have grown in recent years. For example, in January 2012, the Mukesh Ambani-led Reliance Industries Limited, India's biggest privately owned corporate entity, announced that it was entering into a complex multi-layered financial arrangement with Network 18, which ultimately Reliance also took over Network 18. In May, again 2012, the Aditya Birla Group announced that it had acquired a 27.5% stake in Living Media, that is the India Today Group, a company headed by Arun Puri, owning Mail Today, India Today, and Aastak, amongst others. In December 2012, Oswal Green Tech, formerly Oswal Chemicals and Fertilizers, acquired 14% stake in New Delhi Television, that is NDTV, in two separate block deals from the investment arms of Merrill Lynch and Nomura Capital. So notably, India's established media conglomerates have staunchly refused to accept the need for restrictions over ownership and control. That is one of the biggest drawbacks, that there are no stringent laws or regulations to stop these forays of big corporates into media houses for their vested interests. Based on the size, the ownership depends on the size. That means national dailies are defined as big in size on the basis of circulation and leadership. Regional newspapers are considered as a medium-sized based on their readership and circulation, and local publications are defined as small. Based on funding, we have public funding and funding. Public funding in the form of All India Radio and Doordarshan, where the government interest is in controlling both AIR and DD. In fact, AIR and DD are the mouthpiece of the government of India. Otherwise, private, we have a lot of private channels and radio FM channels which are privately owned by various companies and organizations and corporates. Radio ownership. As I have discussed before also, there are more than 250 FM radio stations across India. Some of the examples of ownership are 94.3 My FM radio network with presence across 7 states is owned by Dainik Bhaskar Group. Then you have HT Media owning Fever 104 and Radio Nasha 107.2. Then we have India Today Group owning FM Radio Ishq 104.8 FM. Radio Mirchi, we all know, is owned by Times Group. Radio City owned by Music Broadcast Limited. Now coming from the broadcast media, let's see the newspaper ownership patterns. So it becomes very important that the media ownership dynamics are very critical to understanding of the functioning of media in India. And newspapers are the most credible platform as far as the news and advertisements are concerned. And with all media platforms, newspapers have been accorded a special place by nearly every country in the world, be it democratic, communist, or despotic. This is due to the belief that newspapers remain a most powerful medium of influencing public opinion. And many times the governments have felt that intrusion of private players into newspapers would not only disrupt the flow of information but also lead to chaos in the society and politics. Importance of newspaper in a democratic society is key to understanding the nature of ownership pattern and various issues involved in the ownership patterns of the print. So who are these people who can own newspaper in India today? First of all, the newspapers under the Indian laws can be owned and printed by any legal entity, including an individual, that is a sole proprietorship, a partnership firm, a limited company, or a trust or a society, unless there is some kind of litigation or some kind of legal action against those who are trying to enter into owning of the newspaper. But then there are also some statutory conditions which have to be complied upon before owning a newspaper in India. So it can also be owned by a trust, for example, the Statesman, the Tribune, which is owned by a trust. Then you can have also a company in the form of Bennett, Coleman and Company, which can own the Times Group. So common link among all these forms of ownership is that more than 50% of ownership has to lie with the Indian citizen. So before starting a newspaper, one has to take a permission from Registrar of Newspaper of India, the RNI. And if the RNI is convinced that the person or a company which is going to buy the newspaper or which is going to start the newspaper has a clean record, so they give their consent. The Press and Registration of Books Act 1867 and the Registration of Newspaper Central Rule 1956 are the statutes and rules that govern the publishing of newspapers and periodicals in India. Now, can there be a foreign ownership in a newspaper? Foreign entities are allowed to invest only up to 26%. That is, FDI is allowed only up to 26% in the print, because and also the majority stake has to be with the Indian. They cannot be full or dominant shareholders. The foreign investors cannot be a dominant shareholder in the Indian newspaper. And this has been done deliberately by the government of India to ensure that the ownership and editorial control of the newspaper remains in the hands of the Indian citizens. Again, the ceiling on foreign direct investment or foreign ownership of less than 50% of total equity in a newspaper firm is a norm across the world, not just in India, and India is not an exception in this. So this was all about the ownership pattern that media has. Now let's talk about something on media ethics. Now, media ethics is also again a very debatable issue nowadays, especially when we see those the channels, the TV channels, where if you are a witness to prime time debates, or if you start watching any of the TV channels from 5 o'clock onwards, the kinds of debates, the kinds of language that are being used on various news channels has gone to such a level that it becomes very difficult to even concentrate, even to hear. So where is that media is going wrong? Where are we actually going wrong? I can also discuss the latest controversy that is happening on TRP issue, where one of the channels, one of the prominent channels, is now under the radar of Mumbai police of tampering with the TRP and just to gain more and more advertising revenue. No, these are all ethical issues. Can a channel go to such an extent of tampering of TRP by giving money to a certain household to watch its program for a certain period so that it can get more and more, get the attention of more and more advertisers who can then give their advertisements in that particular channel. So, and then why also that this all happened at a time when certain issues were being debated in the country. Now, news again, the latest controversy is also about that you must be knowing the Sushant Singh Rajput death case and how media has been treating that coverage. You must be seeing that coverage happening and how the media has been talking about and the issue of drug addiction in Bollywood and how certain names have been taken constantly and how Bollywood has image has been tarnished by these news channels. So now many Bollywood production houses along with some advertisers have come together to and filed a case against some news channels who have been able to destroy their image. So these are the issues where ethics come into question as to why the media is behaving in such a manner. Then again, the business model is under scrutiny. The ownership pattern, as I said, the people who are owning these media houses have their own vested interest. They try to maneuver the news. The news, certain parts of the news, people are not aware that it is not the exact true story that is being, as the event or incident happens, is not being narrated, it is being twisted, it is being tweaked for a better TRP or for catching the eyeballs. So the people who are into the helms of these media houses are using these media houses for their vested interests. Real issues are taken over by vested interests, corporatization, politicization. If a channel has if a channel has some political parties involvement, that means the channel would only be talking about things which are in favor of that political party or in favor of that politician, just to create an opinion or an image of that political party or that politician. Revenue has become more important. Media is more focused on shortcut journalism. Substance journalism is no longer found, and those channels who try to give the real picture of the society are not the channels who get the maximum TRPs. So sensationalization of issues and news have become the latest norm in various channels and um, of media, of news media. Also, the power to ask question or criticism has been taken over by the sensationalization of news. You must have seen in various debates, if somebody who is trying to say something different, which is against the norms of the channel or which is against the norms of the debate that is happening, that man is sidelined or that person is sidelined. Even during the debates, if somebody is talking rational about certain issues, or for that matter, that person is being critical of the government, he is being sidelined or some derogatory language is being used. You must have heard all these the government spokespersons, people like Sambit Patra, I don't want to name them, but they have been using derogatory language against certain political parties. In fact, one of the prominent political party of India also criticized and they stopped sending their spokesperson to some of the channels because of the kind of language that was being used for them in various channels and how these anchors were also behaving. So the power to ask questions and being critical of the government has been taken over by the sensationalization of news. Then again, the dominance of market forces over editorial. This has become the biggest lacuna in the Indian media today. The editorial, which was used to decide the news, the coverage, and everything, has suddenly been dominated by the vested interest, the marketing forces, with their focus only on profit, on revenue have started becoming the dominant force. They are the ones who are deciding what will be the news and what will not be the news. This is one of the areas where ethics have come into question, and it needs to be seen and discussed and deliberated upon. Can the editorial dominance, or can there be a balance between editorial and the marketing forces? Or earlier, as it used to be, the editorial section used to be the one to decide what will be the news and what will go as non-news. Now, can that era or period be brought back just to establish the sanctity of media, news media per se? So one of the biggest malady of media today is paid news. When you talk about the ethic, if you're not talking about paid news, then the whole concept of ethic is remains unexplained. So news is meant to be objective, fair, and neutral. This is what we all say, but does it happen that way? This is what differentiates information and opinion from advertisements that are paid for by the corporates, entities, governments, or organizations or individuals. But when this distinction is blurred, that means the news and advertisement, that is the fine line that divides between the news and advertisement gets blurred, then the problem starts. That means the news is being paid for and is published in favor of a political person or a political organization, or that editorial space is being sold. A report by Press Council of India defines paid news as paid news as any news or analysis appearing in any media, whether it's print or electronic, for a price in cash or kind as consideration. So you can say that you are selling a particular space for a particular kind of news. It's a complex phenomena and has been becoming, has gaining grounds for quite some time now. And also there is another melody that has been taking place in the Indian media, and that is the private treaties that many of the media organizations have entered with various business houses and conglomerates. And under this private treaty, a formal agreement between the media company and another non-media company is done, which as a result of which the media house transfers certain shares of the company to the former in lieu of advertisement space and favorable coverage. Paid news plays an important role during the election times. It distorts the news, doesn't give the true picture of the people who are contesting the elections. Then, many times, politicians hide the amount of money that they have paid to the media for the coverage of a political campaign or of any interview or any particular person. Also, that most of these agreements that happen at the time of elections, where the money exchanges are done clandestinely, and they violate the laws of the land. So the solution to all this is what I feel is self-regulation is the best option to check the paid news phenomena. Also, time has come that an introspection from the society itself has to come as to how media should behave. Shouldn't we boycott those channels which are behaving in certain manner which is not appreciated by a large number of people? If the latest example, if you see the Tanishq advertisement, which was withdrawn just because it showed a different color of two different religions, and a lot of people have come out and have spoken against why these kind of ads, which are so beautifully created and talking about two different people belonging to two different communities coming together, and why these kind of ads are being trolled on social media, what kind of society we have become. So the time has come for the society to introspect, that whether the media, which is the fourth pillar, which is the opinion maker of the society, is in what direction that the media is moving today. Then media's role of watchdog of the society should be restored and its credibility established once again. But this will happen only when laws are not just created but stringently implemented too. Also, when the dominance of market forces should be reduced from the editorial desk. As journalist is a crusader, let him be the one. Thank you so much. Now the house is open for questions.
Um, Let me check. Krishna Pandit, you can also check if there are any questions.
Ma'am, there is one question, Krishna ma'am,
Yes.
from Shashwat Gupta. It is, why are newspapers considered more reliable and given a special place than other resources, than other sources?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Shashwat. Newspapers are most credible source because, see, there's something called, when you are writing something, that means you are not just giving facts, you are analyzing it, you are taking different sources into consideration, various resources are put into mind, and then a story is placed. So that gives a lot of credibility. Something that is written has more credibility than something that is spoken on the broadcast media. So, and newspaper are the oldest source of information. They are the oldest source of media also. So that is why they have more credibility.
So I think that these students, they are yet to. I mean, some issues in the sense that they still do not in a position to muster courage to ask the questions, or they might not be familiar with the but then we are also not getting the feedback.
So sorry to interrupt you, but I can see one question.
Yeah.
Uh, just a sec. Let me open it. Uh, it's taking time from here to open. Yes. Ma'am, as you have explained that media's neutrality is affected by many vested interests, and due to that the narrative gets twisted a lot. It even leads to many problems like riots, etc., as seen last year. Yes, very well said, Shreya Rohitki. Can we say government has not paid enough attention to mass media laws and regulations, and if so, why so? Yes, very good question, Avnish. From time to time, as you see in the recent episode, whereby the Bollywood production houses, 34 production studios have come together to file a case against certain media channels, they have also been rebuked by the government. Even the government has come out very strangely and told these media houses to follow the advertising program and advertising rules and regulations and not break them and not go beyond them. But then there is, we have certain things called freedom of expression and speech, which are the hallmark of democracy. So if government comes up with laws curbing anything to do with media, it would definitely hamper on our freedom of speech and expression, which is also part of our Article 19, which is fundamental right of the citizens of India. So it is a very tricky line because it's like a double-edged sword for the government, because talking about regulating media would also mean regulating the individual liberty, individual freedom of speech and expression. So the government has to be really thoughtful, has to be really that is why we have this issue of self-regulation. That is why we expect the media to regulate itself, do the thought process within itself. The time has come that media should itself introspect. The race for this TRP has decayed the media to such an extent that even media is not realizing, especially the broadcast media, is not realizing that what kind of influence or impact it is having on the society at large.
Krishna Pandey, if I can add on this, in fact,
You're most welcome.
the basic problem, if I can tell this to the students, is with regard to media ethics or self-regulation or regulation of media. Because in our constitution, perhaps many of you would have studied this. In our constitution, this Article 19(1)(a) is there, which is about freedom of speech and expression. And there's a freedom which is available to every citizen of India. Similarly, it is also available to a media person. So there are no exclusive rights and powers given to the media. But then, given the scenario wherein we have three organs: legislature, executive, and judiciary, and there is no fourth organ which is recognized, like press, as an independent organ with separate powers and all. So the point is, what kind of powers can be enjoyed by press in our country? So obviously there are no separate power. Power means that the media has to act in a manner which is to the benefit of the society. This has always been happening, but unfortunately, since the time this whole this tilt towards capitalism has accelerated, which means that everything is related to profit making. Everybody is related to money making. And like any other corporate, since all media houses have converted into corporates. So earlier that was not the case. So if they have turned into corporates, their only motive is to make profits, not to create awareness among the people. So they are deviated from their basic objective with which any newspaper, any news channel has been set up. Now, in such a case, when profit making is the final thing, so every channel, obviously this problem is more in television channels as compared to newspapers, for the reason that there are more stakes of the promoters or the proprietors in television channels, because it's a medium which we call the capital intensive medium. A lot of capital is required to run to set up a channel and to run a channel. And then if constant money is not flowing in, it is not possible for a television channel to sustain. So they need money for sustenance. They need money for profits. So by hook or crook, they try to make profits. So obviously, ethics has gone to the backyard. Nobody cares for the ethics. But then this situation can certainly be, if not changed, can be affected positively if people are vigilant. If people raise a voice, if people are not raising a voice, they are accepting whatever bombarding is being done by the television channels, then obviously this will continue. So we have to make multiple efforts, efforts at different level. People have to be vigilant. People have to make it clear that they are not ready the kind of contents which are being provided to them. That is one. Two, the government has to come out with some regulations if the channels are not mending their ways, though it's not easy for the government because of this Article 19(1)(a). So the government has its own limitations, except they can exert pressure outside the tough laws, beyond the tough laws. And then the self-regulation, as Krishna Pandeyji was telling you all. But then self-regulation also has many manifestations. Self-regulation in the form of uh, having your own rules to mend your own ways,
So
which
it's
is uh,
not
which is not,
easy to define. It is not easy to define
yeah,
self-regulation.
yeah. But certainly, few examples can be given. If you can study yourself, I can tell you certain things. You can go through the Press Council of India Act, or you go to the Press Council of India website, and if you can understand something more about self-regulation, it's a constitutional body, but then the self-regulation is woven therein. Besides that, there is self-regulation kind, like there's an organization. If you can go through the website yourself, there is a body which is called News Broadcasters Association, NBA. It is a body which has been created by television channels themselves to keep a check on their own content. But then this body has not been functioning very smoothly, despite the reason that this NBA has set up a separate body, which is called NBSA, News Broadcasters. Dispute redressal kind of body is this. But then recently, I can tell you, this was in the news for the last 1 week or 2 week, and those of you who are who follow news or who are into this, then you can find that this NBA has slapped a fine of 1 lakh rupees each on, I believe, on 4 channels for broadcasting wrong information with regard to this Sushant Singh Rajput case. There was some wrong information quoting some to some tweets was broadcast, which was absolutely incorrect. So that fine was slapped. But that has its own limitations. Even in the recent case, which Krishna ma'am was telling you all, with the other case which is in the Supreme Court, even the Supreme Court has questioned that what is the effectiveness of NBA if it cannot compel the news channels not to broadcast the false news. So in a democracy, there are problems, and we are an evolving democracy. We have problems, and we have problems for also for the reason that there are fingers raised even on the government agencies and the departments that they are involved in fake news. Now, those who are responsible to keep a check, they themselves are involved. So even government machinery is involved. The newspapers, television channels are important, are involved on the social media. Also, lot of, I mean, not only at the individual level, the fake news is happening. At the institutional level, this is happening. So how to check? The only way out to check these kind of practices, malpractices, is that the young people are more informed. Young people are more informed, and that is why we are doing this kind of course. We are trying to tell you all where are the problems and what is the solution. Besides whatever solutions we discuss, the best solution to our mind is to to make the young people aware, the make the young people understand what all is happening, so that you are not part of this whole mockery of forwarding fake stuff. So even if this happens, you are vigilant and you can make out, you can even fact check that the information that has landed in your WhatsApp inbox is correct or incorrect. If you start understanding this, you start making making out as what is right, what is wrong, then if not the complete, at least some part of the battle is won. So that is how we are making these efforts selflessly to educate you all, to inform you all that you remain vigilant, because democracy, in a democratic setup, vigilance is the final thing. And as you grow up, everybody has his or her own vested interest. So, but that will come when you will grow up. So till the time, I mean, you are a student in a school, obviously, we believe that you will be away from all such malice with which the grown-up people suffer. So you can understand all this in a better way. And if you understand this, so even if when you become mature enough to do a lot of things in your life, in the society, you will not be swayed by whatever wrong things might be happening around you.
So there's one more question that if you allow and if we have time, can I take
Yeah,
one?
yeah, please take the question.
There is one question by Aman, and he says that why does the same news differ so much in newspaper and TV channel of the same group like Times Now or Times of India? So would you like to answer that, or if I
You please answer.
I'll answer and then you can add on after that. So,
Okay.
I believe, see, for the broadcast, as Sir has already said, it is the race for TRP which is guiding the sensationalization, and it is also for the viewership, where who is the viewer who is watching that particular news. That becomes important. Same for the newspaper also. Times of India, being an English newspaper, largest read newspaper in the world, is also catering to the reader who is more mature, who is more literate, who has a broad understanding of the subject. So that is why the news that are, and also the prominent happening of a day are covered more detail in a print news than on a private channel, than on a broadcasting channel. Also because of the timing factor, that new newspaper also has the issue of space. But I believe that once newspapers are still maintaining their credibility of writing their news, so that is why both the news are different. Sir, now you can explain on this.
Uh, can you, I mean, further repeat
The
what
question is,
exactly was that?
so the
Yeah.
question is why same media house.
Okay. I mean, I believe that this is half of the truth. It does not happen normally. I can tell you, I mean, whichever newspapers or whichever channels you are exposed to, I'm not sure, but then in most of the cases, in newspapers particularly, I must tell you, the news does not differ much. The same news will be there. Why? Because the sources are the same. Mostly the news agencies are there, PTI or UNI, and almost all the newspapers subscribe to their services. Same news is there. Now, same news, what does it mean? Suppose parliament session is on. Every channel will cover what has happened in parliament. Suppose there is a walkout, everybody will cover there is a walkout. If there are some debate happening, every newspaper will cover that debate is happening. If the Prime Minister has made a speech, every newspaper will cover the speech. If there is an accident somewhere and there are casualties, every newspaper, every channel will cover it that this such an accident has happened. If elections have been announced by Election Commission, then the same news will be there in all the newspapers, in the news channels. So as far as this news is concerned, wherein the source is identifiable, the news will remain the same. What will be different? Normally opinions differ, or any exclusive story by a newspaper or news channel will differ. So what will differ? I repeat, the exclusive stories, special stories of a newspaper or news channel, the news analysis done by a newspaper or news channel, that will differ. So, or the opinions will differ. Now, the problem is that most of the news nowadays, particularly on television channels, that not to that extent on newspapers, is under influence of opinion. Even a normal news story is under influence of opinion, and that is a tilt that brings into a tilt in the news story. There is a slant in the news story. So the same story is presented by some newspaper, some news channel with a slant. With a slant, they will be picking up in the entire gamut of events and facts. One such thing which is sensationalizing the whole thing, and the not any such fact which is not that way sensational is subdued, is buried under in the third paragraph or the fourth paragraph. So that's the game which is being played. If it is being done with honesty, everybody does it in journalism, and that's valid till the time somebody is doing it honestly with a fair objective in mind. But when some journalist, some newspaper, news channel is doing it deliberately to benefit somebody, to damage somebody, then there is a problem. So, I mean, these are the difficult issues in journalism that we all deal with. Some serious-minded journalists, they also deal with these kind of issues. We as media educators and journalism teachers also deal with these kind of issues. And the only way out is to keep on deliberating on such issues so that some sane opinion is built up as to what wrong things are there, should not be practiced. So that's the only way out. There can be no other way out. Krishna ma'am.
Well, there are no more questions.
Krishna ma'am, can I ask one question?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, since we've been talking a lot about self-regulation, so for example, when we consider it on OTT and internet connection, OTT is considered an intimate, intimate medium. We watch it on mobile phones and everything. So recently, there has been this notification passed that even OTT would be required self-regulation. So. What do you think? Is there a need of self-regulation on OTT?
No, but I think the issue right now is how to regulate OTT, not self-regulation. In fact, the pressure is coming on the government to come up with laws to regulate OTT rather than putting, because there is nothing called self-regulation as far as OTT is concerned, because it is more known for the realistic picture of cinema. I mean, they talk about talking in realistic terms. So they are trying to show everything, be violence, sex, whatever it is. The issue that is being debated right now is how can this OTT free censor that which is free from censor can be regulated. So self-regulation, I don't think would exist in OTT platforms. So government also has to come up with certain kinds of laws, which it is talking about in doing controlling the cyber media. Same kinds of laws can be applied to OTT also. But then I think a lot of discussion is already happening at various platforms to devise rules and regulations which would be controlling OTT in the times to come.
See, OTT is altogether a different issue because your talk and whatever questions we took up and questions which were asked were more related to the news media, basically, whether newspaper or news channel. OTT is altogether a different subject as far as the regulation or self-regulation is concerned, because that is mostly dealing with entertainment. Though there are some non-fiction also available on OTT, but that's basically something which is happening on the entertainment side. So I believe we need to have a separate discussion, separate representation on that, which I believe we will be taking up in the subsequent sessions. So I think that now we should wind up today's session, and I make a request to all the participants to join on time tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow we will be having a session on the same time. And then if you join early, then obviously we can fruitfully utilize whatever time is available at our disposal. And let me tell you this also, as to what lecture we will be holding tomorrow. Tomorrow there is a lecture on representation in media and media bias, covering the diversity of viewpoints, as I just now referred to opinions. So obviously opinions differ, views differ. So we will talk about this diversity. And also we will look into the representation aspect in media in view of gender and race. And this lecture, this presentation will be made by Dr. Sharmila Kayal, who is assistant professor in the School of Media, Communication and Fashion in Adamas University, Kolkata. So that is how we are closing today's session. See you all in tomorrow's session at 4 p.m. Thank you all.